Welcome to another session of National Income Accounting, Part 3, Chapter 2. In the last session, we had studied about the basic concepts, and in this session, we are going to learn about the methods of measurement of national income. There are three aspects or three methods of measurement of national income: production or value added method, income method, and expenditure method. So when we talk about the production aspect, it points to the flow of goods and services in the economy or the process of value adding. That means that at every stage of production, what kind of value addition is done. Talking about income aspect, it points out to the generation of income in terms of wages, rent, interest, and profit. That is, we are going to talk about the factor income. And the third aspect is expenditure aspect. It indicates the disposable of income in terms of consumption expenditure or investment expenditure. Because whenever we are incurring any expenses, it's either for consumption or for investment. So first let's talk about the product or value added method. Now in this method we calculate the aggregate annual value of goods and services produced. That is, product or value added method is that method which measures national income by estimating the contribution of each producing enterprise to production in the domestic territory of the country, which means that how much ever producers are present in the domestic territory of a country, we are going to calculate the production or the value addition which is being made by all the enterprise. So the formula to calculate the value added method is, first we would need to find out the value of output, and value of output is nothing but sales plus change in stock. Now what is change in stock? Change in stock means closing stock minus opening stock. Now in this method, national income is measured as a flow of goods and services, and we calculate the money value of all final goods and services which are produced in an economy during the year. So final goods here refers to those goods which are directly consumed and not used in further production, which means we are not going to include intermediate goods, like goods which are used for further production process. Those are intermediate goods. So when we are taking the final value of goods, we are going to exclude the intermediate goods, because in case if we calculate the intermediate goods again, then there will be a problem of double counting. So to avoid this problem of double counting, we can use value addition method, in which not the whole value of commodity, but only the value addition is taken at each stage of production. Like, let me give you an example of a farmer and baker. Let's say, for example, there are two kinds of producer in an economy. That is, one is wheat producer or a farmer, and the other one is a bread maker or a baker. So when the wheat producer grow wheat, they do not need any input other than human labor. So they are going to sell part of wheat to the baker. Like, let's say, for example, if he is producing 100 units, for example, so out of that, which is worth 100 rupees, and out of that total output which is worth 100 rupees, he is keeping worth rupees 50 for his self consumption, and worth rupees 50 wheat he is selling it to the baker. Now the baker have used this amount of wheat completely during the year, that is in the process of production of bread, and they have produced rupees 200 worth of bread. So what is the value of total production in the economy? If we follow the simple aggregate of the value of production, then that would count for 300. That is 100 which was done by the farmer, and 200 which is done by the baker. But here the 50 rupees which the farmer had contributed, we are not going to count that, because it was already counted. So only part of wheat, that is worth rupees 50, was sold to the baker, and out of that he had produced something which is worth rupees 200. So we'll have to deduct that 50. So that would come to 150. So 150 plus 100 contribution by the farmer, that comes to 250. So here the total contribution or value addition is 250. So we can say here that gross domestic product is nothing but sum of gross value added by all the firms in the economy. Here we have taken the example of gross value added one, that is by firm 1, 2, 3, 4 up to n. And value of output, as I said, it's nothing but sales plus change in stock. And in order to find out what is change in stock, we'll have to minus closing stock minus opening stock. Now, as I said that we have to take certain precaution while calculating the value added method, because there should not be problem of double counting. Like in the previous example of farmer and a baker, we had not included the worth rupees 50 which was contributed by the farmer, and the baker who with the help of that worth rupees 50 wheat, he had produced 200 amount worth of bread. So but the actual contribution which is made by the baker was only 150, because that 50 worth was intermediate consumption, which we are going to avoid and not calculate. So there are certain precautions while using value added method. Firstly, the value of intermediate goods should not be included, as I just said. Purchase and sale of second hand goods should not be included, because the calculation of such goods which could have already been calculated in the previous years. Imputed value of self-consumed goods, again, that should be included, but self-consumed services should not be included. And own account production should be included, whereas the commission which is earned on account of sale and purchase of second-hand goods is included. See, kindly be clear that we are not going to calculate the value of second-hand goods, but the commission which is earned by the agent on the account of sale or purchase, that is going to be included. So if the sales are given, then exports are not included separately. And if intermediate purchases are given, then imports are not included. Now let's talk about the expenditure method. But before moving on to the expenditure method, we need to understand that what is planned and unplanned accumulation of or decumulation of inventories. Now, change in inventories may be planned or unplanned. Now, in case of an unexpected fall in sales, that we were expecting the sales, but unfortunately there was a fall in sale. Now the firm will have the unsold stock of good which was not anticipated. So there will be unplanned accumulation of inventory. And the opposite of that, that when there is unexpected rise in sales, then there will be unplanned decumulation of inventory, because you will have to sell some of your commodities from the stock. So that is called as unplanned decumulation of inventories. Now moving on to the expenditure method. In this method, we are going to add the final expenditure that each firm makes. Like let's say, for example, final expenditure is that part of expenditure which is undertaken not for intermediate purpose. So as I said that in expenditure method, the first thing which we are going to consider is final consumption expenditure. See, we are going to spend on consumption. So the first thing which we'll take up is consumption expenditure on goods and services which are produced by the firm. And consumption expenditure is denoted with term C. The second thing is final investment expenditure, which is denoted by I. So final consumption expenditure, final investment expenditure. Third, expenditure that government makes on the final goods and services produced by the firm. So all the expenses which government is going to make on the final goods and services, that also we are going to add in expenditure method. And the fourth thing which we are going to include is export revenues that firm earns by selling its goods and services abroad. See, we know very well that the expenses, especially when we calculate the expenses, it's not only just about the consumption expenditure or investment expenditure, but also about the government is also making expenditure on certain goods and services. And we are also exporting certain goods and services, so that also, that revenue also will be included, and that is denoted by the term X. So C is consumption expenditure, I is investment expenditure, G is government expenditure, and X is the export revenue which are earned by the firm by selling goods and services. So what we get is the summation of this, that is the sum of revenue that firm earns, is C plus I plus G plus X. Now let's assume, or let C be the aggregate final consumption expenditure of the entire economy. Now please understand that part of C is spent on import of consumption goods also, which means CM denote the expenditure on imports of consumption. Please remember here that when we talk about C, consumption expenditure means all those expenditure which we have incurred in the economy, and also the consumption expenditure by importing certain goods. Because usually when we consume something, it's not always from the domestic territory. Many a times we are also importing the goods and then consuming it. So the part of C, we have to include the imports of consumption goods. So CM will denote the expenditure on import, and C minus CM, that is, of course, when we want to find out that how much is the expenditure which is spent on the domestic alone, then what we'll do is aggregate C is nothing but your domestic expenditure plus the consumption expenditure from abroad, that is the import. So when we C minus CM, that would denote the part of aggregate final consumption expenditure that is spent on the domestic firm. Now here C is the aggregate, which means includes CM also, and I means investment. Again, same way, I is nothing but it includes and it is aggregate of imports of investment also. So I minus IM will give you your domestic investment, that is the investment in the domestic territory. Similarly, G minus GM will give you, because the domestic, again, government expenditure. So where G is the aggregate expenditure of the government of the economy, and GM is the part of G which is spent on imports. And that is why if we calculate it further, then what we get is C plus I plus G plus X. And in bracket, if you write the derivation, CM plus IM plus GM. So we'll have to minus from X. X is nothing but export. And this CM and IM and GM is nothing but the import, expenditure which are done on the import. So when we arrive at the final one, it will give us C plus I plus G plus X minus M. That is consumption expenditure plus investment expenditure plus the government expenditure plus export minus import, X minus M. So this is the formula for expenditure method to how to calculate GDP. Now again, there are certain precautions while using expenditure method. Only final expenditure is to be taken into account to avoid error of double counting. Now you know what is double counting. When the same things are calculated twice, then it creates an error in calculation of national income. Like if we are adding the sale of goods and services of second hand goods again and again, then the real national income is not derived. So expenditure on second hand good is again not included. Expenditure on transfer payment by government, be it pension or be it transfer income, like parents giving the pocket money to children. Now all these things again cannot be included, because it would again give a rise to problem of double counting. So expenditure on transfer payment by government, like giving pensions or retirement benefits, all these won't be included. Next one, imputed value of expenditure on goods produced for self-consumption should be taken into account, and expenditure on shares and bonds is again not included in total expenditure, because that is something which income is already being calculated. Now let's talk about income method. Now when we say income method, then by this method the sum total of the factor payments which are received during a given period, that is the factor payments which are being made. For example, for land it is rent, for salaries and wages for labor, interest for capital, and profit for the entrepreneur. So the total sum of factor payment received during a particular period of time is your domestic income. Now, depending on the way the income is earned, so it can be classified into compensation of employees or operating surplus like rent, profit, and interest, and mixed income of the self-employed. So according to income method, we can calculate national income as rent plus wages plus interest plus profit plus mixed income, or C plus G plus I plus X minus M. And when we are calculating the national income, then we use net domestic product at factor cost plus NFIA. So this is the formula which will give you an idea as to how we work on with reference to income method. We have added all the components of the income, that is compensation, operating surplus, and mixed income. Now again, there are certain precautions while using income method. Income from illegal activities like smuggling or theft or gambling, this will not be considered, is not included while calculating national income, because it is not a a white money, or we can say that all this is part of black money or hoardings, which will not be included. So income from illegal activities will not be included. Corresponding to production for self-consumption, the generation of income of the economy to be taken into account, and brokerage or commission on sale and purchase of shares or bond will again be included, because here we are not counting it again. So this is for the first time that brokerage of sale and purchase will be included. Another thing is income in terms of windfall gains and transfer earnings like old age pension, unemployment, allowance, scholarship, pocket expenses, which I was just talking about. All these should not be included to avoid the problem of double counting. Now, after learning all these three methods of measurement, let's talk about the relation between GDP and welfare. Can the GDP of a country be taken as an index of the welfare of people of that country? Now, let's say that if the person has more income, he or she can buy more goods and services, and his or her material well-being improves. So it may seem reasonable that his or her income level as a well-being, because the more income you have, the more you would be able to spend. So GDP is the sum total of all the value of final goods and services which is created within the geographical boundary of the country. Now it gets distributed among the people as incomes, except for that retained earning. So we may be tempted to treat the higher level of GDP of the country as an index of well-being. But in many of the cases, It is not so. First, we need to understand that whether the distribution of GDP is uniform or not. Like, let's say, for example, if the GDP of a country is rising, it's not necessary that welfare may also rise as a consequence. Now, this is because rise in GDP may be concerned in the hands of few individuals, that is, the people who are rich. But for the rest, the income may not even have increased. Rather, it's possible that their income would have fallen. So, in such case, the welfare of the entire economy cannot be said to have increased. Like, let's say, for example, an imaginary country had 100 individual earning rupees 10 in the year, let's say 2019. Now, therefore, the GDP of that country was 1000 by income method. 100 into 10 is 1000. But in 2000, let's suppose this year, the same country had 90 individuals earning 9 rupees and the rest 10 are earning 20. Now see, the major portion is earning more, the major is portion of the population, that is 90, is earning only 9 rupees, whereas the 10 individual rest out of 100 are earning 20. So there has been no change in the prices of goods and services, for example. Assuming then the GDP of that country in the year 2000 would be 1010. So we can compare it with the last year, that it has increased only by rupees 10. So this is what it happens, that distribution of GDP, whether it is uniform or not. Sometimes it may happen that the increase in income is only in the few hands, due to which well-being is not taking place. The second thing which you have to take care is of non-monetary exchange. Now, many activities in the economy are not evaluated in money terms or monetary terms. For example, the domestic service of a housewife or a woman who's performing all the tasks at home without any, monetary benefit. It's just for the purpose of help. So, in barter exchange of goods are directly exchanged against each other. But since money is not being used here, these exchanges are not registered as part of economic activity. So there are number of activities which are not considered as an economic activity. So the third thing is externality. Externalities refers to the benefits or harms a firm or an individual causes to another for which they are not paid or penalized. Like, let's say, for example, the social cost. We have n number of factories and industries who are producing n number of goods and services at social cost, because when they are producing something, they are harming our environment and it is affecting the health. It is also creating a pollution. So that is the social cost which we are not counting as a welfare. So externalities is also one of the negative impact of the goods and services which are produced in an economy. So if we take GDP as a measure of welfare of the economy, we shall be overestimating the actual welfare, because the actual welfare which is taking place is very far away or very low as compared to the social cost by which our economy or our environment is being polluted, or it is the way it is affecting the health of the people in the society. Thank you very much.